Alright, how's it going, everyone? I'm David Bowman, another episode of Coffee House Comics. My fine Italian friend is not here today, spending some quality time with his family. So today's going to be a shorter video, shorter message as far as everything goes. And to kind of start off the top of the list is obviously Justice League came out this week. I saw it on Thursday, early screening. It was a good venue. It's always a nice theater that we hold those events at. So, but my initial reaction to the Justice League, okay, to give some background, I went into it optimistic. I really wanted Justice League to be good. I really did. I wanted it to revitalize the series, but as Roy and I discussed last week, we were worried that they were going to have to do so much origin story with the Flash and with Cyborg and with Batman and with even a little bit of Superman and Aquaman especially. So like with all of that, it was gonna be tough, and then they made it a 2-hour movie. That just made it really tough. So let me give you the background of what led up to the current state of Justice League before we really dive into the review. And Justice League really wanted to turn around the franchise. And they're riding off the high from Wonder Woman. They're riding off the success of that. But they also spent $25 million on a bunch of reshoots, and they brought in Joss Whedon to liven up the movies because Zack Snyder had a very dark and brooding movie originally from the original cut of Justice League, and then Joss Whedon came in and he tried to bring some life to it while also keeping some of the heavier tones as best as possible. Well, in reality, the movie was really, the original cut was over 3 hours long, and they had to make it 2 hours for the theatrical release. So obviously a lot of heavy editing into the movie. A lot of things were cut out. A lot of things were not in there, and so it made the movie very jerky. So the movie cut back and forth a lot. There was a lot of things that they kind of left hanging, like Aquaman's story they left hanging. You see Atlantis, you meet people, you don't know who they are, and then they're gone, and then they're fighting, the bad guy at the end. So it was kind of all over the place, and I feel bad because I feel like there was also really good moments. Like, let's talk about a good moment. Cyborg, the actor playing Cyborg, I thought did a fantastic job, and in the beginning they really played up his inner monologue of, is he the next threat to humanity? Because some alien technology is evolving him and changing him every single day. He's getting new abilities, new powers, and it's freaking him out a little bit. And the actor who Cyborg did a great job, I thought, of doing that. And then jump forward to the end of the movie, and he's perfectly okay. Like that's the type of cut that hurt this movie a lot, where like he just does a complete 180 instantly, and we don't see why, we don't see how, we don't feel the need to believe in that 180 turn. Okay, it was just kind of like, oh, everyone's fine now, yay, let's save the day. So Justice League left kind of a bad taste in my mouth, honestly, and I didn't want it to. I thought, I guess to kind of phrase up, when you see a superhero, you want to believe that they are a superhero. You want to go, yeah, that's Batman, yeah, that's Wonder Woman, yeah, that's Superman, all those characters. And the only one in this movie that, well, I guess I'll say there's actually 3 that did pretty well. Wonder Woman, definitely Wonder Woman. Every time she was on screen, I did not think Gal Gadot. I thought Wonder Woman. She is Wonder Woman. She is Princess Diana, all that stuff. So she is Wonder Woman. Superman, actually, Henry Cavill actually did a pretty good job with Superman. I didn't know where they were going to take that. We'll get into, for those of you watching, we'll get into a little bit of spoilers here really shortly. So, how he came back to life, we're going to tear apart really heavily. So, but, you have the Flash. Let's talk about the Flash. As we talked about last week, I really wanted Flash to work. I thought the trailers originally showed him to be funny and clever, and everything like that, which he was funny, but they'd made him an idiot, in my opinion. Like, Barry Allen, yes, is he nervous around women? Yeah, they nailed that. They did that pretty well. Is he young and inexperienced on a lot of things? Yeah, but he's also really smart. And so the running joke that he didn't know the cardinal directions, the running joke that he, you know, kind of said things wrong, even though then they originally set him up in the intro scene that other people were slow and couldn't keep up with him intelligence-wise. That's a big deal. Barry Allen's not an idiot, and it kind of felt like he was an idiot, like he was kind of stupid, and that's, I don't know, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I'm a huge fan of Flash. We have a great Flash on TV on CW, and to make him an idiot didn't really sit well with me. So now let's talk about Aquaman. Jason Momoa. I'm a fan of him. I like him, and I was excited to see him as Aquaman. But I feel like in this instance, the script and the edit ruined it for him. Because it really felt like he was a guy trying to play a badass, but in reality wasn't really a badass, but he was trying too hard. It felt forced in a lot of ways, and there was times where his persona in certain scenes, like the first scene with Batman, where he was really hardcore, didn't want anything to do it, gave the double bird to Ben Affleck, saying, no, I'm not helping, to the point where he's cracking jokes not 30 minutes later, and it's like that persona of him, that personality just disappeared. And that bothered me a little bit. Like, now I know the next movie is Aquaman, and we're going to get more background and everything like that, but the whole scene at Atlantis in the movie just, it didn't sit well. So Aquaman I didn't think did justice, but that's kind of sums up the whole problem with this movie, was they edited so much out, and the reshoots and everything that happened because Warner Brothers was panicking on whether or not this was going to be a good movie. And the results are, the opening weekend they did $96 million, which for a movie that took over $250 million to shoot, the goal of a movie like that is to at least in the first weekend make 70 to 100% of that back, and that didn't happen, and that hurts, and I wonder, I really wonder what the future of the DC universe is going to be like this, because like they gotta figure something out. And I think the solution, in my opinion, is give us the story. That's why we fell in love with the comics. That's why we fell in love with these characters in the first place, and all their other renditions. Not all of them, but most of them. We want the story. We want the background. We want the drama. And for lack of better terms, that drama, the belief, and getting sucked into the movie was not present during Justice League. There was nothing going on. So, what's up, Lucas Fortuna? It's nice to meet you as well. And it was very frustrating to see that, because I really did want to enjoy it. Now, I hope, just like with Batman vs. Superman, the extended edition or the director's cut or whatever, and I don't care if it's 4 hours long, I will sit through it all. I hope it makes it a better movie, but I think it's too little too late for its box office success, which is frustrating because you had a good cast there. So let's talk about something that really, really irritated me in the movie, and that was how Superman came back to life. Because yes, spoilers, he comes back to life. Wasn't really that big of a surprise considering every single poster had Superman in it, but it is something to talk about because they basically, I felt really lazy, the writing, okay? Because we saw in Batman vs. Superman, Lex Luthor brought to life Doomsday using the Kryptonian ship and the computer and the water and all that stuff, and it went terribly, right? It went really, really bad. So in this rendition, Batman wants to bring back Superman, and they got their hands on a mother box because this is the one that brought Cyborg to life. They have that one. So basically, they wanted to use the same Kryptonian ship, same liquid, but use the energy of the mother box, and they had to put a power surge through the mother box to basically just, bring him back to life through a giant electrical charge and power his body. No need to use sunlight, like in the comics or any other rendition, to just bring him back to life. No need to explain all that, and Flash did some. They were worried about a pet cemetery instance of where if he comes back, he's not going to be okay. But my whole premise is they literally took the the leap of faith that let's do the same thing Lex Luthor did that turned out terrible, do it to Superman, and hope it works out okay. And that was kind of, I don't know, that to me that was lazy. That was lazy writing. Let's conveniently for the heroes it works out, but for the villain it works terribly. Like, to me that doesn't sit well with me as far as writing and everything like that. Plus all the ways that Superman's come back to life, that wasn't one of them ever. So there's, I know movies take leeways with writing and everything like that, but I didn't really believe it. So it didn't sit well with me. Now, immediately after that, when Superman was back to life and he faced off against the rest of the Justice League, that was a fantastic scene. That scene I loved because the Pet Sematary happened. Superman was confused. He was pissed. He tried to kill Batman. And the whole scene when the Flash was trying to get him, and the Flash all of a sudden realizes, oh crap, this guy's as fast as me and he could keep up with me, and the panic on his face. That was a moment where I really did enjoy the Flash, because he realized I'm a little bit way over in my head on this thing. So now obviously it all worked out. They saved it. And yeah, Chalk, that was exactly my opinion. It was meh. So, but that's what's frustrating is they needed, I think, to at least make it a 2.5 hours to keep a little more of those scenes they deleted out to make it a better movie, because it jumped around too much. It didn't draw you in. You didn't believe anything that was going on. And the villain. And I'm a technical guy. Okay, I look at graphics, I look at camera angles, I look at all that stuff. I love reading about all this type of stuff. And the villain, I don't know if anyone else knows, my wife pointed this out before I even said anything. The villain's face changed multiple times throughout the movie. And I'm not just talking like, ooh, he smiled or he growled but like his eye color changed, the skin tone changed, and the consistency with all those things didn't make sense. Now, you could say, well, the lighting was different when they were fighting in the giant, abandoned nuclear silo at the end, and the lighting changed, so that's why his face looked different. But the problem is the lighting wasn't consistent. When the heroes were standing next to him, the lighting that changed his face didn't affect any of the other heroes, and it was distracting him. And when someone like, my wife, who doesn't know the background of all these characters and everything like that, points that out to me, that's a big deal. Those graphical errors, those little technical errors that just distract you from the movie should not be in a $250 million movie. They shouldn't. It makes zero sense on how they could let something like that slip through. And I think a lot of it had to do with those reshoots and they're panicking just to get it under 2 hours, to where the final post-edit was rushed, and they were trying to just make a good movie that wasn't really going to happen. So overall, I was not a fan of Justice League. I really wanted it to be, but it just didn't sit well with me. Now, let's talk about some things that this kind of influences. Okay, there's some things that's happened in the news recently, and we'll talk about the Punisher at the end, because I'm about 7 episodes into that series right now. But there's some things that have been happening in the news recently on the Marvel side that lead to some interesting speculation. And next week when Rory's back, we'll dive into a little bit more. But the MCU, they've been very, very good up until recently about teasing us about future things. I mean, there was that one timeline of like 5 years ago where they were like, here's the next 20 movies, and it was like we were all stoked and excited. There was going to be Inhuman, Infinity Wars, Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther, all the, Captain I can't even remember now. Anyway, but all these movies, and we were super excited for it. But that only went through stage 3 or whatever they call it, stage 3 of where the movies are going to be. And for stage 4, they have been silent. They've not released any movies, any details, or anything like that. Now, here's where the speculation comes in. Okay, this is all my opinion. This is all 100% what I think it's going to be, but we don't know yet. And on one hand, it actually makes me very excited they're being hush-hush about this, because there's been a lot of talks, a lot of news articles about Marvel, Disney, Sony, Fox, all of them talking about allowing characters to be in the MCU. And what I mean by that is, like, we've already saw Spider-Man. He got to be in the MCU to a point, and that worked out very well. And I think that was a good transition where Sony gets, to handle the solo movies, but he gets to be part of the MCU. And from a fan, that's exciting. We want those characters all together. We want those characters all interacting with each other. And obviously, it'd be really cool to have the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and all that stuff in the MCU. And the news article stating that these talks are happening. There's nothing settled, but they're happening. Makes me excited for the reasons why they're not announcing the next stage after the next Avengers movie after Infinity Wars. That's basically the cutoff right now. We know there's two Infinity Wars and then a few other movies, and then we know there's the next Avengers movie that's unnamed, untitled right now. After that is what we're talking about. So we're still like 4 or 5 years out from where this is all going to take place movie-wise. But let's speculate. If they get the X-Men, if they get Fantastic Four to be a part of the MCU, and we've already touched base with Doctor Strange and Thor and a few and Guardians and a few other movies about the multi-dimensions and everything like that. And the one thing we haven't touched base on too much, other than maybe Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., is the humanity reaction to all these aliens. Yes, there's Sokovia Accords and all that stuff, but that's all been reactionary. And the one thing that I think is something that a line that they could go down is a proactive approach to try to figure out how to protect humanity. And so why not put together a special team to transport themselves to a different dimension to try to research and speculate and see what these bigger threats are, hence Fantastic Four. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's going to be work, but I think that would be a fantastic way to reboot Fantastic Four in a good way. Okay, Galactus, Silver Surfer, all that stuff would be fantastic. Plus, X-Men being a part of MCU allows someone like Wolverine, Old Man Logan, to be a part of the MCU and so he doesn't have to be jacked, because we know the actor, the reason he's stepping back away from Wolverine is because he physically can't do it anymore. He can't do the physical workouts and stay that massive. I mean, he's over 50, for goodness sake. It's not healthy for him. So it is something that going into those agreements, and if we get that, Old Man Logan could be a part of the MCU in like an advisory role, which I think would be extremely entertaining, so that way he wouldn't have to basically kill himself getting ready for the role in real life, but we'd still have Wolverine. Plus we have X-22 that could come up and fill that Wolverine role for a newer generation and everything like that. And eventually, I mean, the X-Men universe has rewritten itself, and it's actually still technically in the past from what's happening now. So there's many ways they could tie that in to the MCU in different ways. They have a little bit in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with the Enhanced. Enhanced were basically the word for mutants that they weren't allowed to use because of, licensing and all that stuff. So, if we can get those characters back in the MCU, or into the MCU, not back in the MCU, I think it'd be good. I think it'd be good to have all of Marvel under one umbrella. But with multiple studios saying, hey, we're going to do a solo film, we'll handle that, but he can be in your team-up movie, or he can be a sidekick with your movie, because technically, I forget now, the Hulk is technically on loan to Marvel. I can't remember who owns the Hulk, but technically the Hulk can only be in other movies with other superheroes. That's what the contract says, so that's why he hasn't had a standalone film for a long time. And the next time we brought him in was in Thor, kind of a buddy adventure movie. So, but that's all going to be worked out between the higher execs, and it's just exciting. It's a speculation. It makes me excited because maybe they're completely rewriting all their plans for Stage 4, and it will turn out very well as far as future movies and storylines and everything like that. So, wrap up this show, I do want to talk a little bit about Punisher. Last week we touched base on Punisher as far as what we thought it might be, and I was wondering if they were going to go in a direction of talking about the effects of the mental effects that soldiers deal with, and the mental struggles that they deal with when they come back home. And they did. So far, like, I'm not done with the series. I'm probably going to finish it this week. But they do touch base on the PTSD. They touch base on the brotherhood that you get in the military. They touch base on the struggles of coming back. I think one of the quotes in the movies was, the government spends hundreds of $1,000s per soldier investing in them to be soldiers, teaching them skills and education and all these things to be a soldier, and they come back home, they're out of the military, and they can't use any of those skills. And that's tough. That is tough for a lot of people. That is tough for a lot of vets. And I'm glad that they're touching base on that, because it is a portion of our society that we honor our vets on Veterans Day, and that's it for a lot of us. And it's sad, because there are a lot of vets that this show shows that do need help, that do need ways back into society in order to make them feel like they're a part of something, like what they did mattered. Because I know what they do and their sacrifice they did in the military matters, and a lot of you do as well, but there's a lot of people that don't care and don't see it. It's out of sight, out of mind type thing. So Punisher's been doing that very well. Now, obviously, Punisher is a fantastic series so far. It is touching base on a lot of internal struggles with the Punisher. It's touching base on what he's trying to do now that he's gotten what he thinks at the time, he's gotten most of his revenge for the death of his family. But going on the overarching thing with PTSD, he's having nightmares. He's having reoccurring nightmares and he basically works on a construction site and just goes to town on demolishing walls that they need demolished with a sledgehammer with his hands, to the point where his hands are bleeding. And you see that mental struggle, and the Netflix put together a very interesting way to slowly reveal the nightmare, where every episode we see a new extended version of the nightmare, and it takes, I think, 2 or 3 episodes to where the nightmare ends terribly. Like the nightmare, we see it initially where it's a nice nightmare. He sees his wife wakes him up from bed and says, "Hey, sleepyhead," all that stuff. And then it gets progressively worse and worse and worse, and he always wakes up screaming, he always wakes up terrified and everything like that. And how he handles that, I think, is a testament to the writing, is a testament to the direction, is a testament to really showing us that Punisher, for all his badassery, is a human. And he's dealing with the fact that his family's dead. Now you bring in Micro, you bring in that whole thing. The story really picks up in interesting ways. There's a little bit of humor and there's a lot of drama, and it's interesting how the villains play out, because I just reached a point where I was pretty sure I knew a guy was going to be a villain, and they just revealed at the end before the credits roll that he is a villain. But it was one of those guys that, like, the entire 6 episodes in, where you're interacting with this guy, and eventually he meets with Frank. You want him to not be a villain. You're like, come on, please don't make him be a villain. Make one good guy out of this. But he's a villain, so I won't spoil it for those of you who haven't seen it yet. So far, it's very good, and it's a testament to kind of wrap up with our Justice League talk earlier, of taking the time to write good story, to have a good script. And yes, a Netflix series is 10 plus hours compared to a 2-hour Justice League movie, but that kind of sums up the point. We literally had to have 5 origin stories in Justice League, and under 2 hours, and fight a big bad guy and give a crap about it. And it just didn't work. Versus if they would have had a few more movies before they had Justice League, so we get to learn about some of these characters, like we did with Wonder Woman, that would have been great. That would have been fantastic to build those people up a little bit to make Justice League matter more. that's what MCU did with Avengers. And the thing is, I don't know what the execs over at Warner Brothers were thinking. I think they were just thinking we need to get our version of the Avengers out as soon as possible. But in reality, what mattered more to fans is if they would have done it right. They would have had more box office monies if they did it right. This opening weekend probably would have been $150 to $200 million weekend, probably more, if they would have not rushed all these things. Every single movie other than Wonder Woman has felt rushed. Even Batman vs. Superman felt rushed. And it wasn't until I saw the extended cut that that movie made sense, because the extended cut actually went into details and didn't jump around as much. So I'm hopeful the extended cut of Justice League does that same thing. I will sit through a 4-hour extended cut if that's what it takes. But also, the way they jumped around just didn't really matter. So for those of you tuning in, I do appreciate you tuning in. I know it was a little bit shorter talk today. Next week, Rory will be back. We'll touch base on Justice League again and a few other things. We'll definitely dive more into what the silence from Disney and Marvel means for Stage 4. And it should be pretty exciting. So thank you very much for tuning in. And you all have a wonderful day.